Victor. A round of applause, please.
Once upon a time, a young wife named Yuno was at her wit's end. Her husband had always been a tender and loving soulmate before he had left for the wars. But ever since he returned home, he was cross, angry, and unpredictable. She was almost afraid to live with her own husband. Only in glancing moments did she catch a shadow of the husband she used to know and love. When one ailment or another bothered people in her village, they would often rush for a cure to a hermit who lived deep in the mountains. Not Yuno. She always prided herself that she could heal her own troubles. But this time was different. She was desperate. As Yuno approached the hermit's hut, she saw the door was open.
I hear you. What's your problem?
She explained the situation.
Yes. It's often that way when soldiers return from the war. What do you expect me to do about it?
Make me a potion, or an amulet, a drink, whatever it takes to get my husband back the way he used to be.
Young women, your request doesn't exactly fall into the same category as a broken bone or an ear infection.
I know.
It will take 3 days before I can even look into it. Come back there.
3 days later, Eunuch returned to the hermit's hut.
You know, I have good news. There is a potion that will restore your husband to the way he used to be. But you should know that it requires an unusual ingredient. You must bring me a whisker from a live tiger.
What? Such a thing is impossible!
I cannot make the potion without it. There is nothing more to say. As you can see, I'm very busy.
That night, Eunuch tossed and turned. How could she get a whisker from a live tiger? The next day before dawn, she crept out of the house with a bowl of rice covered with meat sauce. She went to a cave on the mountainside where a tiger was known to live. She clicked her tongue very softly as she crept up, her heart pounding. And carefully, she set the bowl on the grass. Then, trying to make a little noise as she could, she backed away. The next day before dawn, she took another bowl of rice covered with meat sauce to the cave. She approached the same spot, clicking softly with her tongue. She saw that the bowl was empty, replaced the empty one with a fresh one, and again left, clicking softly and trying not to break twigs or rustle leaves or do anything else to startle and unsettle the wild beast. So it went day after day for several months. She never saw the tiger. She thought, though she knew from footprints on the ground that the tiger, and not a smaller mountain creature, had been eating her food. Then one day, as she approached, she noticed the tiger's head poking out of its cave. Glancing downward, she stepped very carefully to the same spot, and with as little noise as she could, set down the fresh bowl, and her heart pounding, picked up the one that was empty. After a few weeks, she noticed the tiger would come out of its cave as it heard her footsteps, though it stayed a distance away. Again, thank goodness, she thought, though she knew that someday, in order to get the whisker, she'd have to come closer to it. Another month went by. Then the tiger would wait by the empty food bowl as it heard her approaching. As she picked up the bowl and replaced it with a fresh one, she could smell its scent, as it could surely smell hers.
Actually, it's a rather friendly creature when you get to know it.
The next time she visited, she glanced up at the tiger briefly and noticed what a lovely downturn of reddish fur it had, from over one of its eyebrows to the next. Not a week later, the tiger allowed her to gently rub its head, and it purred and stretched like a house cat. Then she knew the time had come. The next morning, very early, she brought with her a small knife. After she set down the fresh bowl and the tiger allowed her to pet its head, she said in a low voice,
Oh, my tiger. Can I please have just one of your whiskers?
while petting the tiger with one hand, she held one whisker at its base, and with the other hand, in one quick stroke, she carved the whisker off. She stood up, speaking softly, her,
Thanks.
and left for the last time. The next morning seemed endless. At last, her husband left for the rice fields. She ran to the hermit's hut, clutching the precious whisker in her face.
I have it. I have a tiger's whisker.
You don't say? From a live tiger?
Yes.
Tell me, how did you do it?
Eunuch told the hermit how, for the last 6 months, she had earned the trust of the creature and had finally permitted her to cut off one of its whiskers. With pride, she handed him the whisker. The hermit examined it, satisfied himself that it was indeed a whisker from a live tiger, then flicked it into the fire, where it sizzled and burned in an instant.
What have you done?
You no longer need the whisker. Tell me, is a man more vicious than a tiger? If a dangerous wild beast will respond to your gradual and patient care, do you think a man will respond any less willingly?
Eunuch stood speechless. Then she turned and stepped down the trail, turning over in her mind images of the tiger and of her husband. Back and forth, she knew what she could do.
Okay, there will be another dramatic reading for the poor fisherman and his wife.
Picture man.
Picture man.
Okay.
Hello? Unsa? Unsa?
Naka-red sila.
Trabaho lang.
Couple shirt.
Uy, ako ba nagaling?
Many years ago, a poor fisherman and his wife lived with their 3 sons in a village by the sea. One day, the old man set his snare in the water not far from his house. And at night, when he went to look at it, he found that he had caught a great white fish. This startled the old man very much, for he had never seen a fish like this before. And it occurred to him that it was the priest of the town. He ran to his wife as fast as he could and cried,
My wife, I have got the priest! What? I have got the priest!
They hurried together to the river where the snare was set. And when the old woman saw the fish, she cried,
Oh! It is not a priest, but the governor! No, it's a priest!
and they went home trembling with fear. That night, neither of them was able to sleep for thought of the terrible thing that had happened and wondering what they should do. Now, the next day was a great holiday in the town. At 4 o'clock in the morning, cannons were fired and bells rang loudly. The old men and women, hearing all the noise and not knowing the reason for it, thought that their crime had been discovered and the people are searching for them to punish them.
They knew! They're looking for us! What shall we do?
So, they set out as far as they could to hide in the woods. On and on they went, stopping only to rest so as to enable them to resume their flight.
with you, Miss, but we have to go on. They're going to find us soon.
The next morning, they reached the woods near Pilar, where there was also a great holiday, and the sexton was ringing the bells to call the people to mass.
They knew where we are.
Hurry! Hurry! We must move fast before they catch us!
So, they turned and started home again. As they reached their house, the three sons come home with their one horse and tied it to the trunk of the karamay tree. Presently, the bells began to ring again, for it was 12 o'clock at noon.
The bells again.
Not thinking what time of day it was, the old men and women ran out of doors in terror and seeking the horse jumped on its back with the intention of riding to the next town before anyone could catch them. When they had mounted, they began to whip the horse. In their haste, they had forgotten to untie the rope which was around the trunk of the karamay tree. As the horse pulled at the rope, fruit fell from the tree upon the old men and women. Believing they were shot, they were so frightened that both of them died.
Thank you very much, Jalai. I know it's Angelique and Ruben for dramatic reading for the poor